Hello everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. My name is Ruben and I'm going to talk you through the 2022 Aztron range, really giving you a summary of the range, what you can find from Aztron, and help you understand if any of the gear out there is worth looking at for you. So a little brief introduction about Aztron. Aztron are a Chinese-based brand, so China owned and manufactured. They very much started making iSUPs about 3 years ago, and then they soon after that brought in composite boards as well. This year, 2022, you've got a lot of gear that's available to you to buy. Just by looking at the catalogue, you'll see it's pages and pages and pages of products. Everything from inflatable paddle boards, of course, wing boards, foils, wing foil boards, inflatable wing foil boards, skateboards, SUP safety accessories, wetsuits, dry suits, the list just keeps going. Aztron are definitely hitting the cheaper to moderate price point. They are available in shops, which is nice. You can go to a shop, maybe even try a certain product before you buy it. And they are also readily available all around the world. Because of that, a lot of you have been getting into SUP, especially through Aztron, and you've also been giving us your feedback on the brand, which is always great to hear. I'll give you a rundown of the complete range, but also I'm going to talk a bit more about the more specialist boards that Aztron have brought out this year, especially in the inflatable and the hard composite SUPs. First off, let's look at the inflatable all-round size and shape boards. An all-round board is very much designed for you as a first timer to get into SUP, or it's designed to do lots of different disciplines. So you could have family fun with these boards, you could catch a few waves with these boards, you could just learn how to paddleboard in general, playing around off the beach. They're generally nice and wide, so they've got a good amount of stability to them. They're not the fastest boards to paddle, so they aren't going to give you a good race pedigree or a good touring pedigree if you want to paddle that little bit further. But for general all-round paddling, they are the boards that you would get into the sport with. You've got two types of boards really in the Aztron range. You've got the compact Nova range, which are boards that can fold in half and roll much smaller in the backpack. And then you have the more traditional range that they first brought out many years ago, which is the Lunar, Mercury and Titan. These boards are very similar to the Nova in sizes, except the Titan is that much bigger. So if you're a little bit heavier or you want to carry more weight, or maybe even have a dog or a kids on the front, that bigger base board is going to be better. They are going to give you a little bit more stiffness because you have got a slightly thicker material with that, and they're going to be a little bit more hard wearing. You'll see the sizes of those boards, they're sitting mostly around 32 inches wide, which is probably optimum width for most people getting into the sport for the first time. 32 inches is a good amount of stability. 26, 25, 24 inches is a narrow baseboard and it's going to be faster to paddle. You will see that on some of the race boards we'll speak about in a minute. 35, 36, 38 massively wide boards are going to be better for put more weight on. So most people are finding when they're getting into the sport, and for the all-round boards, 32 inches wide is a very good width. As far as you can see with the lengths, there's a few different lengths there in the all-round ranges. The longer you go, the faster and easier it's going to be to paddle. The shorter you go, the quicker and easier it's going to be to turn around. And you can see by the price points, they're all fairly competitive at their price points as well, sitting around 450, 500 pounds for really the most expensive Titan. If you're new to the Aztron brand, the first thing you'll notice about these boards and all of the other inflatable paddle boards is they come with double chamber constructions. So what's a double chamber? That is where you have basically almost two boards in one. You have a inner chamber, which is the sort of square sort of shape, which is pumped up first to 10 psi, and then you've got an outer chamber, which is really the main outline shape of the board around that inner chamber, and you inflate that one up afterwards to 15 psi. So that's a double chamber board. Aztron put that into their boards from a safety point of view, so if you do accidentally puncture the outside chamber of your board, you will still have the inner chamber to float back home on. So that does give you an extra level of safety, but really the thing we notice is you do get a lot more stiffness out of your board having it in double chamber. Moving along the range there, you have got a slightly more specialist board sitting there, the Venus, which is like the yoga fitness board. If you're into yoga and you want a nice clear open deck, it's very similar outline to the all-round boards, just more that open deck, so you're going to have less chance of tripping over stuff. Next up, we have the touring sort of faster cruising range of boards. These boards have been in the range for a few years now. They're very established. A lot of you are buying these boards as first-time paddleboards to get into the sport as well. Definitely, they're a little bit longer, you'll notice, compared to the all-round ranges. So if you are wanting to be paddling a little bit further, those boards are much better to jump on even as a first timer. So if you know you're going to be paddling a bit further, you know you want to explore around the corner, probably move onto those away from the all-round boards. Those boards this year have had a few update changes. The graphics have changed and now they have kayak seat attachments, which you can buy an extra kayak seat for to clip on as well to make your board a bit more user-friendly. You'll notice the Neptune suddenly is a little bit longer at 12'6" long. Again, that more length, it's going to be faster and easier to paddle. And you'll see the boards again still very competitive, £579 for the Neptune, which is the biggest board, so they're good price points again. Now I want to jump up to the new race boards they've got. They've got the Meteors. They've got the Meteor Lite, which is this one here, which is a 12'6" board, and they've got the Meteor, which is a 14-foot board. You'll notice when you look at the outline shape of these boards are much thinner than other boards we've spoken about already. The Meteor Lite is 26 inches wide and the Meteor 14-foot is 27 inches wide. By dropping the width and keeping the board nice and long, you're going to get way more glide, way more waterline length, faster, going to paddle in a straighter line easier, which is what you want for racing and generally paddling quicker. Obviously the stability, you're going to cut right down the stability on this. You're not going to have as much stability as a wider based board. They have done a few big refinements on this new shape board. There's some things on the deck pad which are quite neat. They've got some extra sort of standing areas that come out to the rail of the board to give you a nice flat area. Really make a difference with this narrower 26 wide board, give you that nice bit of stability. Got handles everywhere. Again, if you're wondering what that is, if you're racing, you might be running in and out of the water with your races. Generally having a handle further forward that's offset is a lot easier to do this. Back of the boards have got a kick pad, and underneath the back of the boards, you'll notice it's a single US fin box. And there's also a water edge runner at the back there, which helps the water kick off the back of the tail and produce less drag when you're paddling. The nose shape as well, much more pointed than the other boards we've seen, so much better at penetrating through chop or bumpy waters, designed to obviously get you paddling as fast as possible. Also check out the SUPboarder Pro race inflatable test, which is about to be live soon, and where the 14-foot Meteor goes up against 10 other boards, I think, on the market. So if you're interested in the 14-foot race boards, definitely check out that video on SUPboarder Pro. And those boards at sitting around £649 are fairly competitive to get you into racing with an inflatable paddleboard. For that price, you do not get a paddle like you do with the other boards we've spoken about so far, because many of you who are getting into racing will probably want to have a more specialist paddle or opt for a better Aztron carbon paddle than what comes with the more basic all-round base boards, which is a standard aluminium 3-piece paddle. So now let's move away from the fastest boards in the inflatable paddleboard range to look at the more specialist boards in the range. Now these are new boards for this year. They have the Sirius and you have the Polaris. Now the Sirius is a whitewater specialist board. Really neat looking board, much shorter, more compact, quite wide, good amount of stability. Got lots of nice little neat features on that. You've got a choice of up to 5 fins with that. You can run it as a quad setup, which is 4 fins. You could run it as a 5-fin setup. You've got loads of different combinations of fin setups you could run with that. The reason whitewater paddlers might want to choose different fin setups, maybe it's to do with the depth of water they're paddling in. Maybe they're trying to avoid rocks, so having 2 side fins, making it a quad and having no fin in the middle allows you to pass over those rocks in the middle, making it much easier. Or also you can make the board really pivotal, reducing the number of those fins. Now that board is pretty geared up for whitewater. We would love to get that board over to our whitewater specialist Beth so she can give us a full rundown of that board. But first looks at it, it has got everything it needs to have for whitewater. Good amount of width, nice big deck pad, even deck pad up towards the nose there. You've got your small bungees if you could put stuff on the board if you wanted to, and finished off with a lot of different choice fins. The Polaris is the other board I have here. That is another new board in the range. Now this is another wide base board. Just like the whitewater board, these are both 36 inches wide. so much more width and stability than something that's 32 inches wide. Obviously it's not going to be as quick, but if you want to carry a large amount of weight and you want a very stable platform, having something this wide is going to give you that extra stability. So the Polaris is designed for adventure. It's an adventure board. It could be anything. It's really gearing itself up a little bit more to fishing. You could definitely take this board in whitewater and rapids as well. It's got a good amount of tail kick, which would help that. This board is finished off with a single fin here, so it doesn't give you as much choice as the Sirius. It's also really geared up to carry more stuff as well. So down the rail of the board, they've put in these webbing loops here. You could hook stuff in here, you could tie extra stuff on, maybe you could put carabiners on there, you could tie anything to the side of this. You've also got fishing rod holders at the front, and you've got two at the back here, so you could add your fishing holders in if you want to do a bit more fishing with more rods. There's definitely enough room to take a cool box on this board, or maybe you just wanted a really stable board that wasn't too long. Again, whitewater paddling, or maybe you're a really heavy rider and you'd like to catch a few waves. It's not going to turn the best in the surf, but it's going to give you a large amount of stability, being 36 inches wide. So another new board from Aztron, and it's good to see this type of board you don't see very much in the industry at the moment. So this is very much a new shape. Aztron have also got the Orion, which is a surf shape, which is a really interesting looking surf shape. Got loads of rocker line, which actually is what you need when you're getting into SUP surfing. That board is going in our SUPboarder Pro iSUP surf test, which is going to be happening very soon. So look out for that for more information. I think that's going to go up to almost 20 boards up on test. So that's a lot of boards we've got to test in the surf. So look out for the Orion from Aztron on SUPboarder Pro, the surf test. And Aztron have got some windsurf iSUPs that are really worth mentioning. We've also done a review on those in the past, and they've also got some multi-person SUPs as well. So if you're getting for two of you and you want one SUP, or maybe you want a bigger board, put the whole family on. So they've got a few boards in the range there as well. And again, still very competitively priced. Okay, let's keep moving with this overview video because we've got a fair amount to talk about because Aztron have got a lot of stuff. Let's look at composite SUPs now. So you've got the similar sort of lineup as you have with your inflatable paddleboards. You've got your all-round boards, you've got your touring boards, and you've got your race boards. If we look at first the all-round boards, similar to the inflatable all-round boards, similar sort of width, 31 inches wide, 32 inches wide, mid 10 foot in length here. The Callisto is a new board for them this year. It hits that perfect all-round size. 10'6" long, 31 inches wide, it's 4.75 inches thick, so it's a lot thinner than these 6-inch thick boards. The other boards they've got in their range, Eclipses, if you are after an all-round range of boards, but maybe you want them to be a little bit more user-friendly, maybe you want the kids to be able to jump on them, maybe you want to catch some waves and you don't want to worry about having such a hard board. The Dupit was around last year, that's 10'8", it's 32.5 inches wide, it's a little bit wider, a little bit more stable if you're a heavier rider, or maybe you want to put somebody on the front. Definitely look towards that board over the smaller Callisto. So let's progress on to the touring range. Remember, touring, faster, easier to paddle, definitely for paddling that little bit further. Again, going from an inflatable paddleboard to a hard composite paddleboard for touring is going to give you that much more performance. It's going to be faster to paddle, it's going to be better to paddle in choppier moving waters because your board isn't going to flex so much. And also when you're punching into choppier waters or wavy conditions, the waves aren't going to bend that board at all. The waves are just going to punch over the nose of the board and you're just going to keep on paddling. So you are going to get that much more performance out of hard composite boards. This year as well, Aztron have got some nice boards in their touring ranges. Bo's just done a review earlier on SUPboarder on that, so definitely check out more information, check out the comparison between those two touring boards, the Apollo 2.0 and the Europa. And at 28.5 wide and 30 inches wide, it's giving you enough stability, not overstable, so not going to 32 inches, but they're going to give you that much more speed because they're not super wide. So if you're moving into wanting to paddle faster, maybe you're still even a first timer, but you're sub 85 kilos, you could jump straight onto those boards and start paddling them straight away. And if you want to paddle further, they're definitely the boards you should be looking at. But I really want to move straight on to the composite race boards. I've got one of them back here. This is the Sonic, a new board for this year. And they've also got the Lightspeed and they've got the Martian, which has actually been in the range for a few years now. The Martian is the shortest base board at 12'6" long. 27 inches wide. You could be looking at that for faster touring, or if you're entering any 12'6" race classes. Definitely not as popular as the two other boards, the Sonic and the Lightspeed, will be for a number of reasons. A lot of you who are getting into racing are wanting to race 14-foot boards, because there is a class of 14 foot long and there's a class of up to 12'6" long. More people are generally going towards the 14-foot class. And if there's more people racing in it, there's more races available to you, so maybe you haven't got to travel so far to get into racing. The differences between the Lightspeed and the Sonic: the Lightspeed is your more flat water based board. It is 24.5 inches wide, and the Sonic is your more all-water, open water race board, and that's only 22 inches wide. The reason the Sonic is more of the open water board is because it's way more rounded than the Lightspeed. The Lightspeed has got much sharper rails, which generally will catch a little bit more in moving open water. So the Sonic is a bit more rounded up towards the nose and throughout most of the board, which allows it to move around in the chop a bit easier than something than the Lightspeed. And also the rocker line, which is the curve of the board from the front to the back, there is more rocker on the Sonic than the Lightspeed. The flatter your board is, generally the faster it will paddle. But bear in mind, there is a big width difference here. The Sonic is 22 inches wide, and that isn't a very wide race board. A lot of the top end racers are racing on maybe 21-inch wide race boards, but a lot of you who are still getting into the sport are sitting around the sort of 24 inches wide, maybe up to 26 inches wide. So it's not got a lot of width here, this Sonic, for heavier than maybe 85 kilos. If you're 70 kilos and down, the Sonic is going to be a really fast board to paddle. The Lightspeed, having a little bit more width, is going to be a little bit more comfortable for heavier paddlers. Definitely somebody up to about 90 kilos is going to be a lot more comfortable, but still the sweet spot I think is going to be slightly lighter, probably 70 to 85 kilos. These boards are all carbon layup boards. They're fairly lightweight for their size of them, and actually the price points of these boards, you do get a lot of board for your money. Other equivalent boards in the market, you're looking at almost £1,000 more than that. So it's a very competitive race board at that price point. Looking at the surf stuff you can get from Aztron, they do a SUP surfboard called an APUS. Still a fairly lightweight board if you're a rider of 75 to 95, 100 kilos. That board could be a good board if you're a progressing SUP surfer. If you're after prone surfboards, they've got lots of foamy soft tops, which are really popular at the moment, all at pretty good competitive price points, and they've got some epoxy composite longboards as well. All these are lie down prone surfboards, remember. Not to mention they've got a few bodyboards thrown in there, so they have got a large surfing range, but they've only got one SUP surfboard in the APUS. Looking at paddles, to be honest, is better off just looking at Bo's video where he's done a full comparison and look at the whole Aztron range. With most of the packages as standard, you get a 3-piece aluminium nylon bladed paddle, and some of the better touring based packages, you're going to get a 3-piece glass fiber with a nylon bladed paddle. If you're one of those keen people that are getting into wing foiling, they've got a whole range of wing foiling kit as well. They've got an air wing, they've got a good range of foils that we've already done reviews on all of these. They've got some inflatable wing boards, they've got some composite wing boards. Definitely if you're interested in that, they are some good price point products to get you on the water the first time. Check out our past video that we did earlier a few months ago. There's been a lot of you buying those as packages from shops and getting into wing foiling around the world. Some other stuff that Aztron brought out last year, but they've increased the range even more, is the surf skates, the skateboards. We first reviewed some of these last year, and actually if you're a SUP surfer or a surfer and you're a bit landlocked, these are great for getting you, I was going to say on the water, but on land and feeling that flow of that wave. They're going to be great for you improving your SUP surfing, improving your surfing. They do feel very similar to surfing, and they really will help you get that flowing movement, getting you turning your head, turning your shoulders, feeling how your board reacts under your feet. So if you're a landlocked surfer, I really will encourage you to look into a surf skate, because they will allow you to get a lot out of it when you can't get on the water. Another thing Aztron are really pushing this year is a lot more safety gear. There's a lot more buoyancy aids available from them. There's a lot more impact vests available from them. They've also got the Orbit Air Belt, which is a belt you can wear around your waist, and you can pull the pull string to activate a sort of giant pillow which basically floats in the water. So if you become detached from your board, you can inflate that and you can lie in it. It's not a buoyancy aid and it's not a life jacket, but it does give you the extra level of buoyancy when you're in the water. Definitely, if you want to be using that, check out where you're going to be paddling it, if they allow that as a buoyancy aid before you go to the water. And also remember, if you're new to paddleboarding and you want to learn more about buoyancy aids, leashes and SUP equipment, check out our full safety series called SUP Safe, which is on YouTube and on SUPboarder. It's got all the information you need to know about getting into SUP safely, including are you wearing the correct leash, are you got the right buoyancy aid, tide, weather, all that sort of stuff. Definitely well worth checking that out if you don't know all that information already.
Now that's not all from Aztron, the list just keeps going. They've got a series of new balance boards which are designed to be used on land and get you fit and ready for paddling when you do go paddling. They've also got a massive range of wetsuits, dry suits, paddling clothing, boots, gloves, helmets, all of the stuff that you need to get paddling and be safe and comfortable on the water.
So now I'm going to start to wrap this video up by giving you some cons and things to be aware of about Aztron and the pros and summary of Aztron. If we look at negatives or things you're going to be aware of when you're buying into certain Aztron products, it could be very simple things like when you deflate your board, unfortunately you're going to have to use the pump on the deflate setting to suck all the air out, because the two inflation valves are in the middle of the board opposed to the front or the back, so you can't roll all that air out. Definitely something to be aware of. Another observation, paddle that comes with the Neo packages isn't actually that long. If you're maybe above 5'10", what's that, 178 centimeters in height, the paddle probably won't go long enough because they haven't got enough extension in that top section. This Polaris board and the Sirius board is very much a whitewater setup board. It's for paddling in moving waters. We would love to see that board come with a quick release leash attachment that goes around your waist, so you can release that really quickly if you become entangled or trapped with anything that's fixed to the riverbed or seafloor. If you're unsure what I'm talking about, you definitely need to watch our SUP Safe video on leashes. The race boards themselves, for their width, are not actually that stable. This board at 22 inches wide isn't as stable as other boards at 22 inches wide, probably because of the big rounded nose underneath and the slightly rounded bottom in the midsection. It's going to mean that board's going to transition around chop really well, but when it comes to stability from side to side, it's not as stable. And even the 24.5 inch wide Lightspeed is not as stable as other equivalent 24-inch wide race boards. So if you're looking at it and you're at the heavier end of that spectrum, these boards probably could be a little bit of a handful for you. And the last thing to be aware of, not with all of the stuff, but a lot of the stuff, the quality isn't as high as some other brands this year. We're not talking huge stuff here, but stuff like the graphic layer up around the nose of that board, you'll notice is the rail's meant to be stuck right over to the graphic. So you can see where there's a blank grey area around the board. Maybe you've got some wobbly PVC stuck on the side of the board here. You might find your deck pad is actually rolling off in the corners. They're not massive things, but they're just finishing touches where they're not as highly finished as other boards on the market, even boards at the similar price point. And another big negative, which we keep bringing out every year, is the packing from Aztron is still not good enough. The stuff is still wrapped in a lot of plastic. There seems to be a bit less than last year. We've still got to get the plastic down. Got to get your board wrapped in paper. The plastic's way harder to recycle, and it'd be just nice not to use plastic in the first place. So again, Aztron need to work on that packaging. But looking at pros, you have actually got a really big range of paddleboards and other accessories in Aztron. A lot of them are very well priced and hit a very competitive price point, and most of them are very standout and good looking boards compared to other, we would say, more boring graphic boards on the market. All these boards have a recommended PSI pressure of 15, which isn't actually that high, but they're all double chambered and 6 inches thick. So at that 15 PSI, you are getting a very stiff board. So if you're a heavier paddler or you don't want to put that much air in your board to get a stiff board, you are going to have a stiff board in the Aztron range of boards. Remember, the flip side though is if you're a lighter paddler, you might not need this extra thickness and you definitely will not need the extra stiffness. In summary, Aztron have really grown over the last few years. They are a Chinese brand, but they are hitting a worldwide reach. It's great how they are readily available in shops, so hopefully you can go in and definitely try a lot of these boards and stuff before you buy. It's good to see them focusing more towards the SUP safety gear, and it's really nice to see new specialist boards being put in ranges at these cheaper price points. If you've got any questions and comments about Aztron, please let us know. It's well worth checking out our other Aztron videos to go into way more detail. And if you're unaware if you're SUP safe on the water, please go and check out our SUP safe series where we discuss everything from leashes, weather conditions, choosing the right locations, the right buoyancy aid to wear, and making sure you make the best location choice on that day. It's really important in the summer months with a lot of us newer paddlers getting into the sport that we are safe on the water. And also look out for the SUPboarder Pro test. Remember, we've got the inflatable race board test and we have the all-round improver test, and we're going to have the iSUP surfing test as well.